Hello there, Kelp Drew, Falco Flyer. What emote is that? It looks like the panda's getting attacked by a rainbow, a McDonald's rainbow. Oh, Pride Penguin. It's a penguin? I guess that is a ping. Okay, yeah, I can see. It's not the panda, it's a penguin. You missed me, Riley, and called me Father Gun. I'm not the kind of father that just goes missing. Hello, Vale Rock. Oh, I ruined everything. Let's see if we can't fix that. There we go. No, that's not fixed. There we go. Only things you get to see in the pre-show is me, old man farting my way through life here. We're getting by though. Hello, Tofu. Yo, Jess Beatty of Ice Shard. Did I remember that correctly? It's hard. There's too many people in this community. It's hard to keep up with what you are all doing. Hello, Devilish Jaw, with your haha cat emote. Okay, that's. I don't know what's haha about it. It looks like you get a birthday cake there. Destiny Troops 3-2. What? Oh. It's like, who did we 3-2? Kelp is happy. You should be. Pure Divinity made the playoffs. Anybody would be happy about that. And Div 2. Then you gotta play Cataclysm. I don't think anybody would be happy about that. We got Div 2. You have a plan for Cataclysm? Okay, beat them. Then, do you have a plan for Booyah Gang? And then what? Universal didn't win their group. Universal lost to Cataclysm? 5-3, but who did Cataclysm lose to? Fantasy. That's interesting. Ice Shard's the number 1 seed here. That's probably because of region stuff. Hello, Z. You woke up early just to catch an episode of the Popcast. Appreciate that. Hello, Sir Skit. We can look at Div 3 real quick. Who's the Luau got? OFBO. Those guys looked really good. Why are they seed 8? They lost to Ryzen. Ryzen 5-0'd their group. Wow. And they wondered why we kicked them out of Low Ink several months ago. How close was the Ryzen OFBO match? 5-0? That's suspicious. Is that a drop? I wonder if they just had to forfeit that match because they couldn't find the time. 5-0 Ryzen over OFBO. The same OFBO team that 5-0'd Rising Wave, 5-1 8th year before I believe they dropped, 5-0'd the Crusaders, 5-1 Port Raccoon got 5-0'd by Ryzen. That spells sus. That's something. They weren't playing at full strength or something like that. So that's weird. That is very weird. Is that the team Luau has? Yeah, Luau has to play. Luau, I know you're the number 1 seed going up against number 8, but I'm very sus of OFBO being the number 8 seed here. That's very sus of that. Avalanche survived their group death. Group C was a slaughterhouse. Sispel, T. Ryzen's got Stargaze. I'll be interested in that. You played Horizon in August, Low Ink. Yeah. That's I mean, that's fair. At that time, then yeah, you guys were both Luau and Ryzen were fine for Low Ink. That's fine. It's just, and I mean, Rising Matrix was fine for Low Ink. Rematches after so long. Well, they can't rematch in High Ink because Rising Matrix didn't win. They had their shots though. What, they finished 3rd place like 2 months in a row. I believe the team that knocked them out was Luau and Xanadu back in like August and September. Oh yeah, that's right. The Albacore Hotel Rainmaker game where neither team was just... it was like one of the lowest scoring Rainmaker games we've seen. Yeah, I think you guys won because you finally got a wipe, and instead of taking it over mid and getting the easy lead, you took it like down the terrace, I guess, the enemy terrace, and went like the back door, and like almost died there because they were spawning back in with that. Yeah, I remember that game. I commentated that. I think what I said was, no, you're not watching a turf war match. We are currently playing Rainmaker right now. They won that one. I forget. Well, they won that game, but I think that was the only game they won against you guys in that set, wasn't it? Or didn't they win like another game because of a DC or something? Man, reminiscing about low ink. Old low ink. Low ink tournament. Let's get checked out. 3-2. Well, the newspaper doesn't care how many games you lost. If you win, you win. Record books. History only remembers winners. Unless it doesn't. Oh. How do I... Hold on, I gotta give one of my mods a mod roll here. I guess this will do it. Did that work? One of my mods is down. If you guys are gonna go crazy, now's the time to do it. I do have mods. I have trusted, vetted mods that I know that I'm either married to or have been very close friends with for a long time, who I trust. Unless I don't. There you go. You got your little sword back there. That works. Nice. Thanks for reminding me. Not been paying much attention to anything past week. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Popcast. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live or a VOD, Twitch or YouTube, or Spotify. While you're prepping for your Luti playoff matches, telling people that they need to go touch grass, sheeshing at people, whatever it is that you're doing right now, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this, unless I don't. Happy Memorial Day yesterday to the countries that celebrated it yesterday. I don't know if Happy Memorial Day is politically correct, if that's the thing you're supposed to say. I guess I hope you enjoyed your Memorial Day. I've not to get too in deep in my thoughts on it, but I've never been a big fan of people that say things like, oh, in case you thought this was a day you can just go out and grill. It's not. It's a day you're supposed to feel like crap because people die. I understand it. Look, I understand it's the significance of Memorial Day, but I'm also don't think we have to sit around and be miserable about it the whole day. I think it's fine to celebrate living and enjoying life that people sacrifice their lives for us to enjoy. So happy Memorial Day to the people who celebrated. And if you have someone in your family who you honored yesterday, thank them for their service on my behalf. Let's change topics here. I've been offline a lot the last couple of days. So last night I spent a lot of time catching up on everything that happened over the past weekend. I had some personal stuff happen Thursday, and it was a good time to spend Memorial Day came kind of at a perfect time for me to hang out with my family. First time I got to actually see my family for a year and a half. So that was nice, and we're good, and we're refreshed, and we're ready to come back with a Popcast episode today that's going to have a ton of stuff that I crammed into my brain last night. So quickly, news update. Minnow Cup has not been announced for this month, and I have insider information. So I don't really know if there is going to be a Minnow Cup coming up this month or not. If there is, we will announce that on the next episode of the Popcast or whenever. Other than that, I don't really know when the next low-level skill cap tournament is going to be, other than the next low ink. Obviously, I'm a low ink head now, so I kind of know when the next low ink is, but that hasn't been announced, and this isn't going to be the place to announce stuff like that. So just be keeping an eye out for the next low ink heads up, or the next low ink whenever that gets announced. Today, we are going to be talking about a lot of stuff. A whole heck of a lot of stuff. Basically, everything that I could find last night that took place over the course of last weekend. I think it's more I think it'd be more significant to talk about something that didn't happen this last week. But we're going to recap a lot of stuff. We're not going to go into insane amount of detail that I normally do. We're not going to spend a whole hour on one tournament. We might only spend like 2 to 5 minutes on a tournament. But a lot of things happened this weekend, so I want to give a shout out to a lot of different things that happened, because why not? We're also going to be recapping lower level rankings that came out, because you guys are interested in that, and I am as well. Always nice when those things come out at the end of the month and not 2 weeks after the month has already ended. So the rankings are totally fresh as of today, so let's take a look at them when we get to that. And lastly, Luti playoff predictions. 100% accurate. I'm going to tell you right here, right now, today, who is going to win, and I misspelled Luti. There, Loit, I believe is how it's spelled. This is one of the advantages of listening to me on Spotify, is you don't get to deal with my my typos there. There we go. That is fixed. We are good to go. I'm going to tell you who's going to win each div. In fact, after today's episode, I believe all the teams are going to drop from Luti, because they're going to realize there's no point in doing 3 more weeks of this. Popgun has already told us who's going to win, so we're just going to let that team get the crown and save ourselves 3 weeks of our time. That's how accurate I am going to be today. But first, let's recap the weekend, all of the crazy things that happened this weekend. Tons and tons and tons of information. So let's try to sweep through all of it as quickly and as thoroughly as possible. First off, so I can pull up the exact information here. It was announced that Nintendo is officially partnering with something called Play Versus to create a varsity high school Splatoon league. What? The official tweet says this: we are excited to share an official partnership with Play Versus that will make hashtags Smash Brothers Ultimate and Splatoon 2 officially recognize varsity athletics at participating high schools beginning fall 2021. Learn more, including how to join the waiting list. This is from, I believe, the Nintendo of America Twitter account that released that. What is this? Didn't we just 5 months ago completely burn the bridge to Nintendo with the whole Squid House fiasco, and basically said, all right, we now recognize that we are never going to get any kind of support from Nintendo after what we just pulled off right here? No, they are creating some sort of high school tournament, or high school, not a tournament, an actual league season. How is this actually going to work? I have no idea. And at this stage, I don't particularly care. The story here is not how this is actually going to work, because it's going to be in September when this actually happens. Believe it or not, I am not in high school, so I cannot participate in something like this. And I don't really just the initial thought is going to be, wait a minute. I play Splatoon in my high school. Are there 3 other people in my high school I convinced to play with me, and B, are they actually going to be good at the game? We have some college teams, particularly in low-level Splatoon, that are pretty decent, but it's hard to find 4 people in your same college that are all at the same skill level as you, if not a little bit better. I would imagine high school is going to be a little bit more different. I don't know how this high school league is going to work out, but that's not what's important right now. What's important is that Nintendo is supporting, sponsoring, being heavily involved in something that is an esport for Splatoon 2 outside of Japan. That is significant. That is the true story right here. It could be it could have been anything. This could have been Nintendo partnering with Motel 6 to create a league for people that put gas in Walmart bags, for all I care. It doesn't matter. It's Nintendo showing support for the esports scene for Splatoon 2 and Smash Brothers Ultimate as well, which is nice. I feel like this is something we've never seen, especially for Splatoon outside of Japan, like I said, but Smash Brothers as well. Remember when that document came out, and all those times Red Bull tried to get a league going or a circuit going for Smash Brothers and Melee, and Nintendo was like, nah, we're not doing that. So this is significant. We'll keep an eye on it going forward when more information gets released. I've looked at the link in the tweet, and it just left me with more questions than answers. And I haven't reached out to anybody from, what is this, Play Versus is the organization they're partnering with. Maybe I will try to do that. I doubt I'll get anybody to come on to the podcast, but I'll at least make the effort to reach out and say, hey, can one of you guys come on to my little show here and explain how this is all going to work? But again, more information on that will come out. The story now is not what this is actually going to be. The story is just Nintendo sponsoring something esport in Splatoon 2. That's significant. Let's take a look at our tournament. Team Fighters hosted a tournament called the Fight Invitational. Did some of you know about this? I didn't until somebody directly DM'd me about this tournament, so I looked into it. It was a Div 6 through 8 tournament that was an invite only. Basically, the invite was you just had to DM the person running the tournament, which I believe was Valor Rock, who came up with the I guess the Team Fighters was the organization or the team hosting this event. Streamed matches. It started at 5 p.m. Eastern time. My only gripe with this tournament is it was a 2-day tournament. Oh, I don't know about these. I've been critical of a lot of tournaments that did a 2-day tournament and didn't have a good reason to do that. There's only 2 reasons to do a tournament 2 days. Number 1, you got a fat-ass prize pool, and it needs more time to whittle down and determine a true champion to figure out who's going to get all this money that you have. That's the other reason to have a 2-day tournament is you have just a bajillion teams sign up for it. And once again, you can't really truly whittle down all of those teams efficiently in just 1 day, or just Swiss or groups into a double elimination bracket would just take too much time. Those are the only 2 reasons to do a 2-day tournament. A 12-team tournament with a not huge prize pool does not need to be a 2-day tournament. If you're going to make people basically dedicate their entire weekend to a tournament, there has to be something more than just that. High Ink is the perfect example because this was another invitational that also had 12 teams in it. What did High Ink do? Groups into a double elimination tournament. Groups were only 3 rounds. That's fine. Just do it for seeding for double elim. Everybody makes double elim. Groups, just get those matches over with, get immediately in Double M, and get that tournament over with. Now, High Inc. lasted, what, 4 to 6? I can't think of off the top of my head. I would think that's about a 5 to 6 hour tournament, which is a little bit lengthy, but High Inc. was just kind of a fun thing, kind of like Tassel that we'll talk about in a minute. It's not a tournament that's meant to be, I mean, there was a prize, and you know, you're always, whenever you're always playing for something, but it was just more so about the pageantry of being in High Inc. It was more about a celebration of a bunch of past Low Inc. champions. If JPEG had come to me and said, hey, Destiny Troops is invited to this tournament, it's going to be Saturday and Sunday, I would have been like, bye. I'm not playing in that. I'm not making my guys play in something like that. And I've been critical of other tournaments in the past that were 2-day and didn't need to be. The most egregious example would be SAC Season 3 Tournament Number 1, which A, there was no prize pool for that tournament, so no reason to do that. B, they didn't have a ton of teams sign up that would warrant to do it, so there was no reason to do that either. And F, the format, 5 rounds of Swiss into a single elimination. That's a 1-day tournament. There's no need to drag it out. Now, the format for this tournament at least worked for 2 days. Swiss into a double elimination bracket. Hey, that sounds familiar. What other tournament does that? So the format was fine. It's just there's no reason to do it something like that. Regardless, looking into the actual 12 teams that signed up for this invitational, and I didn't have this up, so bear with me here as we look through behind the scenes. Stalling, Sparkling Sea, Novice Clams, Team Wipe, Zlotl Army, Reticent, Outcast Ninjas, Shiver Me Inklings, Cephalopop, Table Tossers, Cephadonts, Wipeout Punks, and Typhoon. Typhoon did not check in here. Did they actually play in this tournament? They did. Somehow, even though they didn't check in, they were able to get in and play the tournament anyways. So that works out. Now, if you read through all of those teams that I just mentioned and you follow low-level scene as closely as I do, you're looking at that and saying, oh, Outcast Ninjas, the Alpha Bracket team, they did pretty well in the last Low Inc. They've been doing pretty good in Luti. They're going to just destroy this tournament, aren't they? That's what I thought, and I immediately just skipped over to Swiss bracket and looked right at Diamond, which was the top cut bracket on Sunday. And lo and behold, the Outcast Ninjas did not win this tournament. To their credit, they did finish in 4th place, getting eliminated by Cephadonts? What? That's interesting. Cephadonts is a team that the last time they played in Low Inc. didn't even make beta, and that was in May. So just last weekend, they played in Low Inc., did not make Gamma Bracket, and somehow was able to 2-0 Outcast Ninjas. In fact, Cephadonts went on to sweep Shiver Me Inklings 3-0, Shiver Me Inklings being a really strong team, who did really good in beta bracket last month in Low Inc., has made, I believe they made, or they did really well in their Luti Div 6 group here. And Cephadonts, being I believe they are a Div 7 team, if not a Div 6 team themselves. Regardless, they played in Little Squid League. The fact that Cephadonts did this well in this tournament, finishing in 2nd place of all of these teams, really impressive. Very impressive for Cephadonts. Shiver Me Inklings taking 3rd place. The team that won, maybe even more odd, is Wipeout Punks. Now, the grand finals for this, really exciting. Cephadonts forced a bracket reset 4-1 over Wipeout Punks. Wipeout Punks able to win in a game 7-4-3 over Cephadonts in a grand final. So there you go. A very nice finish, an exciting finish to this tournament, but a surprise result. What's more impressive, Cephadonts finishing in 2nd place or Wipeout Punks finishing in 1st place? Don't really know, because we don't see a lot of Wipeout Punks outside of what they've been doing in Luti. The last time they played in Low Inc. was back in February, where to their credit, they did go 2-4 in that tournament. But they won their Div 6 group, and we'll be talking more about Wipeout Punks later. But this is a very nice win for them, both for Wipeout Punks finishing in 1st place, Cephadonts finishing in 2nd place. So Team Fighters, we'll look more into these tournaments if they keep doing more of these tournaments going forward. I didn't get to watch the stream. I didn't really have time. But in my opinion, hopefully this becomes just a 1 day thing instead of a 2 day tournament. But that's just me throwing my unsolicited opinion out there, as I typically do. Speaking of unsolicited opinions, another tournament that went on this past weekend. Oh, Stormy was commentating. Oh, I'll definitely want to go back and see that. Dapple Productions had a speed ladder tournament this past weekend. A Splat Zone only speed ladder tournament. And you guys know I love speed ladder. I love me some speed ladder. Even if it's not the best mode, in my heart of hearts, I think it is. Because I know for a fact low-level teams love speed ladder a lot more than they love Swiss or group stage. Mainly because, I've got to play against FT Win. This sucks. But as soon as that's over, boom, I can just hit a button, and it's the mystery of knowing who you get to play next that's so exciting. And you don't have to sit around and wait for things to end. When you want to play, you play, and you hit a button, and you start playing. Speed ladder's awesome. So I wanted to point out Dapple Productions for doing this. And what I found interesting, or I wanted to know about, my criticism of speed ladder, well, the main criticism of speed ladder is, it doesn't really determine a true champion. And I didn't look into, it was on Smash GG, which is difficult for me to navigate regardless. I don't really know if there was anything past the speed ladder stage, because 2 teams finished 5-0. So I don't know if anybody really won this tournament. And I looked at Dapple Productions Twitter, and they didn't be like, congratulations to this team for winning this tournament. So I think it was just a 2 hours play however much you want, and whatever you get. Congratulations for whatever. I guess it's fine. But what I was concerned about with this tournament, only 11 teams signed up. Now, a lot of low-level teams did show up for this tournament. Bamboo Dragons, Wiggly Phantoms, Edencraft Cult, Hardcore Noobs. Some other notable non-lower-level teams, but other notable teams signed up for this tournament as well. Dynasty Dragon Wave, the Crustacean Crusaders. But only 11 teams signed up. Can you do a speed ladder with only 11 teams? The mindset is, as soon as you hit the button, that you're going to immediately be matched up with somebody. If there's only 11 teams, that's not going to happen. You can't just immediately hit the button and somebody's going to be over there. The most egregious example I saw, Roundy of the Crustacean Crusaders tweeted out, hey, if anybody else is queued up looking for a match, DM me. And Roundy, the screenshot Roundy posted, I believe they had been waiting for about 8 minutes for their match. So kind of an issue with that. However, I do want to point out, unless it was a 2-hour tournament, several teams were able to get in 7 matches. The Crusaders got in 7 matches in 2 hours. Unless the time limit got extended from what was posted on Smash GG, 7 rounds of best of 3 matches is a lot to get in 2 hours. For reference, Low Inc. for 6 rounds of Swiss. Now, that's mostly because there's a lot of hand-holding going on in round 2. There's a lot of teams that drop over the course. There's a lot of things that just naturally slow down Low Inc. Swiss, but Swiss itself is slow in general. It takes about 3.5 hours to get through Saturday, and that's just 6 rounds. So the fact that the Crusaders and a couple of other teams were able to knock out 7 matches in a span of 2 hours is impressive and shows the power of speed ladder. Now, would this tournament have obviously been better if there was a lot more than 11 teams? Yes, the speed ladder format would have worked out a lot better. For example, the NA Open back in winter, when my team played in it, we played 5 matches in the first hour. Now, that was mostly because we were playing people who I am convinced literally bought the game the day of the tournament. I mean, that's how uninitiated they were to competitive Splatoon. But still, the more teams you have, the more matches you can get in. But I think this is an interesting case. Even with 11 teams were still able to find a way to get 7 matches in 2 hours. And I'm not dogging Dapple Productions for not having a lot of teams sign up. We've talked about organizations and tournaments across the entire spectrum have been lacking in teams, mainly because there's a huge saturation of tournaments in the competitive Splatoon right now. Plus, Luti's going on. That kind of adds a lot of fatigue as to why teams aren't signing up for other tournaments. It's not just Dappled Productions having less teams sign up. Literally every single organization is having a downtick in teams that are signing up. So regardless, I hope to see more Speed Ladder tournaments just because I personally like them. So kudos to Dappled Productions for doing it. And interesting case study all around. Yesterday, the Chicago Cubs beat the San Diego Padres 7-2. That puts the Cubs into, let's see, they are actually have a half game lead over the St. Louis Cardinals in the NL Central. San Diego Padres just a half game behind the San Francisco Giants, who are surprisingly leading the NL West. We will keep you guys updated on that. Another thing that happened this past weekend that I want to keep you guys in the loop about. Lastly, but certainly not leastly, something called the tassel, whatever this thing is, was a big talk of the town over the past weekend. I was keeping up on Twitter, and I didn't look anything into tassel. I mean, I was aware it was going on this weekend, but like I talked about, wasn't exactly available to sit down and watch it live. But the amount of conversation this thing was driving on Twitter was substantial, and you couldn't avoid it, and that is a fantastic thing. What I noticed about this as I was going back and looking over this was a fantastic production. This is like the type of quality of production that we're used to seeing from when Nintendo would stream the grand finals of their open tournaments. What we saw was 4 people basically rotating commentary, all with their webcams on, and all talking in between rounds. I mean, that's really difficult to pull off. I'm not saying that from experience. I'm just saying from somebody who typically commentates sets normally, and then after like the best of 3 sets, like, all right, well, let's take a 20-minute break and we'll be back with round 2 and all this stuff. No, these guys commentated and then had other people who weren't commentating like talk about what happened in that last set and then got you set up for the next one. It was like an actual show. Like it was an actual show that we just don't see in Splatoon 2. And it was really awesome to see. Again, I didn't go down and sit and watch through all 3 or 4 hours of it, but it was a lot of people though did. It's hard to tell how many people were watching. Again, I wasn't watching this live, so I don't know how many people, like what the peak was, what the average was, or anything like that. The only thing I have to go off of is the amount of views that it gets, like the VOD gets. Now, I don't know how Twitch VOD views work. It makes no sense to me. It used to just be whoever watched it after the fact was a view, but now they include like the amount of views it had during the live show plus the people who watch it afterwards. So it's weird. I don't understand how Twitch views work on VODs. Regardless, here's what I do understand. The VOD, as I checked last night, and this might not be the case right now as you're listening to this, but as I checked on Memorial Day, May 31st, it had 5.7 thousand views on Twitch. For context, Low Ink Day 2, the Championship Sunday, is still up on the IPL's Twitch page. That has an extra week, so another week for people to go back and watch that one. That one had 2.7 thousand views. So this one, even though it's a week fresher, even though the Low Ink Day 2 tournament is an extra week of VOD for it to be up, Tassel has 3,000 more views than that on Twitch. Now, I know for a fact that Low Ink had about 300. We probably peaked about 350 for Championship Sunday for the past Low Ink. So my assumption was, or is that this one probably peaked at about 600 or 700 of the amount of people that were watching it live. And K-Bot is actually in chat and said 600 people were live on mainstream and had like 75 on a co-stream that I believe Negus was doing as well. Okay, so there you go. Close to about 700 people watching Tassel live. That's awesome. And again, that doesn't include if other people were streaming, like Kiver or Keo or if any of those other big name guys who have a huge following that were playing in this tournament, if they were streaming as well, those views, in my mind, count into the amount of people watching Tassel as well. Even if they're not watching the main stream, they're still keeping an eye and giving attention to this tournament. So that alone is really awesome to see. Anything that puts eyeballs on competitive Splatoon is awesome. And this is a great thing to see that it was another all-star tournament. Again, you're playing for you're playing to entertain fans. You're playing for pride. I don't know if there was a prize for this or not. I'm sure there would be something that would entice these players to want to play and compete at the highest level for it. But this is what people want to see. They want to see the best players compete against each other, people that you actually know, and it's exciting to watch. This is why when majors happen and they don't get a ton of teams that sign up for it, my response is, who gives a crap? Because the people that low level want to see are eventually going to get on stream anyways, and they're going to show up and show out and support it. And that happened right here. Slow level came out, supported, and loved this event and talked about it a lot, drove a lot of conversation on Twitter about this. So there you go. Congratulations to the people who participated and helped run the Tassel All-Star Tournament. Even somebody who was trying their best to avoid any kind of conversation with Splatoon over this past weekend couldn't avoid it. So hope the K-Bot crew feels good about what they pulled off this weekend, because it was seemed to be doing pretty well. And that recaps everything that happened this past weekend. Did I miss anything? Was there like a midway tournament or something like that? I don't know. Yeesh. Friday was, oh yeah, I saw it. I saw there was some tournament on Friday, but I try not to endorse every single tournament that I don't want to talk about every single tournament on the Popcast. It's only I'll just leave it at that. I don't endorse everything. Why play tournaments anyways? So that you get a better div, so that you can brag about it. Everything circles back to Luti. Everything circles back to Luti. Unless it doesn't. Now, dipping on into the next thing here. Another thing that happened this weekend that is more significant to the casual listener of the Popcast, and I'll give it a little bit more attention than the other things I just ran right through. The low-level rankings have been released. In fact, they were released, it was either yesterday or Sunday. Regardless, we keep talking about this. If you want to do a monthly ranking, you have to release it early. You have to release it like the first couple of days of the next month or the last few days of the previous month. That's hard to do. It requires a lot of work, but Parias is able, for at least a couple of months in a row now, present a top 50 that is still relevant and fresh and exciting to look at. Again, as we go through this top 50 list, Parias did stream his reasoning for all of these things. I did not look at that. One, I didn't have time, but two, I didn't want to just listen to what he said and then just repeat everything. So if you want a more in-depth reasoning for why teams are ranked where they are, I would suggest checking out Parias_Sky99, I believe is his Twitch handle. But regardless, if you want just my fresh, unfiltered, unswayed thoughts on this top 50. Let's look at it. Starting with the first couple of teams here that are Div 4 teams. First off, Symphony is number 1, Geek Squid's number 2. But Pop Gun, isn't Symphony, didn't they not even come close to win Low Inc? Didn't they do really good on Saturday but not so good on Sunday? Why are they the number 1 team? First off, if you win Low Inc, it's clearly stated in the rules that you are not eligible for the next low-level ranking. Makes sense. If you win Low Inc, you're pretty much banned from everything else, so there's no reason. That's not to say you're no longer a lower-level team, but if this list just put the team that won Low Inc at the number 1 spot every single time, that would be pretty ridiculous. So, Symphony's at number 1 here. Now, yes, they did not do particularly... They did fine in Alpha Bracket on Sunday, not as good as they would hope that they would have done. But the reason they're at the number 1 slot here is because of what they've been doing in Swiss stage of both Low Inc and Minnow Cup. I want to point this out. This is their stats in just the Swiss stage of Low Inc and Minnow Cup per game. 30 wins and only 3 losses. That's why they're the number 1 team. Did they close out the tournaments they played in? No. Is it still significant enough to put them at number 1, considering the teams that won this tournament are not even on this list at all? Yes. The other team right at number 2, maybe some people are scratching their heads about, Geek Squids. Geek Squids? Really? Of course. Again, look at what they did. 5th place in Low Inc, and this is back-to-back good months for them in Low Inc as well. They had their best 2 Low Incs these past 2 months. Unfortunate that had to come now and not a little bit sooner, but still it's good enough to put them at number 2 on this list. What really bumped up both of these teams, and this is what makes the lower level ranking kind of, I don't know, maybe not controversial, but definitely interesting, is because Luti. Now, Geek Squids and Symphony play other Div 4 teams in Luti. So that means their wins and losses are going to hold more weight than a Div 6 team that's only playing other Div 6 teams in Luti. That's just how it is. So Symphony and Geek Squids got all of their wins in Luti in the month of May. The problem is they lost all their matches in April, so neither team made playoffs. But Symphony, 5-4 Night Surfing, who won Low Inc back in April. Geek Squids survived Watch Party, and I believe got another win this past month as well. So that combined with how they did in Low Inc, that's why they're at number 1 and number 2 over a team like Fruit Punch, who looks like, actually there's a number 2 for Fruit Punch, so they're actually tied with Fruit Punch as well. I think Fruit Punch, I don't know if they played in enough tournaments. I know they played in SOS, but I don't know if that qualifies you for the low-level rankings. Plus, they didn't play in Luti because they're a new team. They didn't play before then. So, I guess they slipped onto this list, but tied with Geek Squids at number 2. Now, if we're skipping on down, obviously Fukatsu Angels, that makes a lot of sense. We're going to talk about more of them later. But the other 2 Div 4 teams on this list, here's what I find odd. Evening Chickens are at number 6. Resilience are at number 7. These are both Div 4 teams, and technically they did enough to be on this list. You had to play Luti sets, Minnow Cup, and Low Inc. You had to play 2 of those 3 to qualify for this list, and technically Evening Chickens and Resilience did because they played in Minnow Cup. The problem is, though, what I find odd is they both did sign up for an exemption to play in Low Inc, and we denied them because the cutoff we used at this point was you are a consistent Low Inc team that has played in Low Inc, so we actually know who you are. Plus, you're not eligible to make the playoffs. The Evening Chickens didn't make the playoffs in Div 4, but at the time that they asked for their exemption before Low Inc, they were. And if they barely missed playoffs. They lost 5-4 to Sky Knight. Sky Knight goes on to make playoffs. Evening Chickens are done because of that. But still, in Resilience did make playoffs in their group. So I think it's odd. Symphony and Geek Squids gets a bump in this ranking because they played in Low Inc. But the problem is Evening Chickens and Resilience didn't get to play in Low Ink, so they fall down the list a little bit. And I'm not sitting here saying those two teams would beat Symphony straight up if they were to play them. Evening Chickens lost to them in Minnow Cup 2-1. One of the few losses Symphony even had in any Swiss stage this month. So I don't know if it's fair to put those two teams on the list, because it's not like Evening Chickens and Resilience dodged Low Ink. They asked for it, and we told them to get lost. So but still, they're on the list at number 6 and number 7. I just feel like if they had the opportunity to play in Low Ink, they'd be higher up on that list, which is why I wouldn't say it's not fair, but I think it's, I think they're better than number 6 and number 7 on this list. They just weren't given the opportunity to show it. It's not my fault. Regardless, moving on down, the first Div 8 team, I don't know why Falling Ink has a 7 next to it. They're actually Div 8, are at number 8 on this list, and that is significant because, like we said, Div 8 is not actually Div 8. It's just Div ? Well, the more we see of Falling Ink play in these other tournaments, and by the way, not a lot of Div 8 teams are playing in these skill cap tournaments, or any tournaments for that matter. They're just playing in Luti. So Fallen Ink being one of the more significant teams from Div 8, playing in other tournaments so that we can learn more about them, have been doing really well. Top Cut in Minnow Cup, Alpha Bracket in Low Ink. I don't think they've won a match in Top Cut or Alpha Bracket yet. It doesn't matter. It means they're doing good enough to qualify them in their first couple of tournaments. Once some of these more teams get weeded out and Fallen Ink gets more experience playing in these high-pressure games. Bryce is on. That's why that flipped up. I was confused. He fixed it. Oh, hey, that's awesome. Even better. Regardless, I like Fallen Ink. I'm more excited to see more of Fallen Ink going forward. And it's good to see them this high on the list. I think the number one question people are going to be pointing out here is Citrus falling to number 9. Look, Citrus didn't have a bad month. They really didn't. It wasn't as strong as the month they had last month, and other people did have better months than them. But if you're Citrus, you shouldn't be looking at this and saying, wow, we were arguably the number 1 team, and now we fall to number 9. That means we're getting worse. No, they weren't getting worse. They did fine. They did just fine in Low Ink. Yeah, they had a bad Minnow Cup. But we can excuse a bad tournament. You can get a mulligan in a bad tournament as long as you turn around the next month and do really well. Citrus did really well. I believe they got 5th, 6th, something like that in the most recent Low Ink. It's not winning it, but it's still a strong result that you would expect a team like Citrus to get. That's why they're at number 9 here, and I think that's fair. But if you're a fan of Citrus, they still did really well in Luti. The only team to threaten to beat them was Sekinaga in their group, who they beat 5-4. So if you're Citrus, I think you're in a good spot still. I think you're still a contender to win Low Ink. But I think number 9 here is justified. I just don't think it's something anybody should be panicking about. Oh, they're getting worse. They were overhyped. No, they were underhyped. They deserve all the attention they've been getting. The first team on Div 6 to make this list, Insurance Agency, at number 10 here. The Insurance Agency being a really strong team. The more that we see of them, I keep talking about them every single time. They made Alpha Bracket this past Low Ink and did decently well, getting a couple wins in that. So we'll see more of the agency going forward here. I like them at number 10 on this list. Power Inc. is the first Div 7 team on this list at number 48. Or no, 47. Why did I write that down? That's Inkvaders at number 48. Power Inc., the first Div 7 team on this list at number 7. I feel like, I can't remember, but I feel like we had more Div 7 teams on this list last time. It's just nice to see that more teams from Div 6 and Div 5 are starting to play in more of these tournaments and get some credible results. And starting to say, hey, we need to be taking up these spots, not all you Div 7 teams here. But still, Power Inc., I think, is proving to be the more consistent Div 7 team. They're not the best team in Div 7, but as far as Div 7 teams that are actually playing in tournaments, Power Inc. is proving to be the more consistent of them. Notable team, the only notable team that's not here is Amnesia. Amnesia 5-0 their Luti group, and the problem is they're not playing in other tournaments, and that I don't think that's their fault. I think they're a team that's built more for weekday stuff and not really for weekend because of personal life schedules and things like that. But if Amnesia, man, if they could find a way to play in a low ink, it'd be really exciting to see them there. But Amnesia is definitely a top 10, top 15 team for sure if they did enough things to make them eligible for this tournament. Teams I think are going to be moving up on the next list, the next top 10 list that comes out. Teams that I think are going to be climbing the ladder. First off, you got to go with Cephadons, right? I mean, they finished in second place in the Team Fighters Invitational, and here they are at honorable mentions number 51. Now, this is why it's so shocking that Cephadons did so well in that tournament, is because they are, I mean, this honorable mention number 51, that's fair. That's totally fair for them to be there for what they accomplished in May outside of the Team Fighter tournament. But still, if we just go off the rankings, here's the teams they beat. Number 51, they beat number 26 Outcast Ninjas, number 18 Shiver Me Inklings. So Cephadons, if they can continue what they did in that invitational tournament and turn it around and improve off of that, then yeah, they're definitely going to make top 50, but they're going to climb it even higher with what they pulled off if they can keep going forward with that. Ink Bashers. Feel really good about the Ink Bashers. We had them on the pregame show before Low Ink, and I think they said they wanted their name to get out there a little bit more. Didn't have the best Low Ink, but still undefeated in their group, 5-0 in their Luti group, and have some chance to make some noise in the playoffs. But the more we see of these guys, the better they're going to do. The Ink Bashers. Mahi Monsoon had a bit of a tumble, rough month for them. You can chop it up to college finals, people needing to move back. I think some people were on vacation, so Mahi didn't really have the best month. And they had to drop during Low Ink because I think somebody had connection issues or whatever. So they didn't survive Swiss Saturday and had some rough Luti matches for their part. But still, I think Mahi Monsoon, if they can bounce back during the month of June, they're going to get back up to being that team that we expect them to be. A top 10 team on this list is what they're capable of being. But yeah, I think 37, just a rough month. But for this month, 37 I think is pretty fair. But we'll see more of them coming forward. I like ITAP. That's no secret. I'm a big ITAP fan. Them at number 25 here, I feel like I feel like they should be they should feel like pretty lucky that they got to number 25 and it wasn't a little bit lower. Again, same issue as Mahi, college stuff. May is not a good month if you want to play in tournaments with all the college stuff going on here. Luti happening, Low Ink happening. Just a lot of things going on in ITAP's lives that kind of kept them down. The good news for ITAP, what I'm excited about them, they were able to beat Amnesia in the last week of Luti 5-4. I believe this was just a couple of days ago that they did this, or Saturday, I believe. Now, it's not that match was nothing. There was nothing on the line. Amnesia lost, but they still got first place in their group. And ITAP had lost too many games to where they could have made playoffs. So there was literally nothing on the line but pride. And ITAP was able to get a prideful win there. And you like to see that. You like to see teams that they're not playing for anything, but they still go out and try to win and get the win anyways. So that win can be the kind of jolt of life that ITAP has desperately needed this past month, and could be a sign that the rust is starting to come back off. So if ITAP has a good summer, they're going to bounce up ahead of where they've been at this 25 spot. But I guess that remains to be seen what they do during this upcoming summer. Sakinaga, you know I'm big on them. They played it in their first Low Ink. They made beta brackets and did decently well in it, but I think we have higher expectations for what they do. Interesting to see how well they do in their playoff group, we'll talk about in a minute. But them at number 20 right here, I feel like is fair. But still, if I were to match Sakinaga against the teams that are above them, I would probably favor them over some of the teams that are above them on this list. Last but not least, the team I am most hype about, at least for today, is Dark Reign at number 13 here. I feel like these guys are a top 5, top 3 team heading into the next Low Inc. And I know just by me saying this right here, that means they're going to crash and burn and everybody's going to try to destroy them when they play them. Fair enough. That's not my fault. I put that on you guys for doing good enough to draw attention to yourself. But still, Dark Reign at number 13 here. I think they're going to have a good month. I think they're going to contend to win this next upcoming Low Inc. If they can find a way to make Alpha Bracket. So there you go. Another month. Again, I like this list. Parias_Sky99, if you're interested in his actual thoughts of breaking down each team. I'll probably go back and listen to that after this and see how accurate my thoughts were compared to some of the thinking for some of these teams right here. But there you go. Are we going to see people at here scrim lower level ranking month of May, top 25 only? I don't know, but I think in a couple months it's going to be cringe to ask for scrims at a Div 5 level because nobody's going to really know what true Div 5 is anymore at that point. So there's cringer things to do in a scrim channel, I guess. Cringier. Insurance agency is really good. Yes. They are definitely good. Fruit Punch formed after Luti. Yeah, and one of them commented on my YouTube video that they didn't think they were going to play. They don't think they're going to play in the next Low Inc. Because a couple of their players are banned from Low Inc. Outright for what they've done on previous teams beforehand. And I know they needed a sub, so I don't know what Fruit Punch is going to. We might not see much more of Fruit Punch in low-level stuff, which is fine. The goal for anybody is to not be a low-level team forever. I mean, everybody's goal is obviously to win Low Inc. and get banned from Low Inc. that way, but the vast majority of teams get banned from Low Inc. outside of doing just of winning it. So I guess your goal is eventually to be too good to have me talk about you on the Popcast, but maybe eventually I'll just talk about everything so that you can't escape me, and I'll just curse this entire community. Let's look at the other thing going on. The playoffs of Luti have started. So let's look at some Luti stuff and do some predictions with that. All right. No, that's not the right. Let's get the right screen up before we transition over here. We're going to look at each div from 5 through 8, each group for that. I'm going to tell you who's going to win each group. First off, just to recap what happened in group stage, we're looking at Div 8 first. We're going to go Div 8 World, work our way up to Div 5 America. Fallen Inc. and Nintendo Destiny were able to get through their group. Fallen Inc. being the more notable team. We've talked about them a lot. Doing really good in Div 8 here, as you would expect them to do. They win their group, Nintendo Destiny being the second place team. D. Ignatus won their group. Great Barriers, the other team here at 4-1 going on. And Splatland Recon Team 5-0'd their group over Los Santos, who gets the other seed at 4-1. I believe Los Santos, yeah, that was a really close match here, 5-4. So these two teams seem pretty even with each other. Now, what does the final stage for it look like? For Div 8, it's going to be a little bit different because there's only 3 groups as opposed to the 4 in the other divs that we're getting at here. So some teams have a bye here. And it's not always, this team, Diz Ignatus, might be the best team in this group, but because only 2 teams get a bye, they are one of the teams that get stuck here playing Nintendo Destiny. I think they'll find a way to get past them without any issues. This group is kind of a bit of a... I don't know. This group is scary because we haven't seen a lot of games. Ignatus, yeah, they're 5-0, but they also had 2 wins because of drops, but they were 15-0 per games in the 3 matches they actually played. Fallen Inc. being the more notable team in this group because they are playing in tournaments outside of just Luti. They are the number 1 seed here. And Splatland Recon seem to be pretty even with Los Santos. So this is the one group I don't feel totally confident about. I would want to pencil in Fallen Inc. just because they have the extra experience over all these other teams. But there's no reason to count out any of the anyone other than Great Barrier and Nintendo Destiny. I think has an opportunity to do some damage here. We'll find out more about this after round 1, after some of these matches get cleared up. Maybe after semifinals. That probably feels like a cop-out. But if I have to pick a team, I'm going to go with Fallen Inc. just off of the credentials that they have coming into this playoffs. Looking at the American group, Vegas Splat is 5-0'd their group. In fact, I believe, yeah, they went 25-0 in their group. Vegas Splat went totally undefeated in their group. Kings of Fire, the team that survives the tiebreaker here. You see just 1 game over Overthinking Crossfire. They are the team that moves on to group stage or knockout stage as well. Division Inquisition 5-0'd this group. Technically on paper, if you look at this group though, 2 teams dropped and there was a bye. So Division Inquisition really only played 2 true matches, because they played Pufferfish Party and Stingray, and that's it. But they 5-0'd them. They 5-0'd them both. Pufferfish Party and Stingray was a 5-4 result. Pufferfish Party barely won that one, so that's why they're the other team that's moved on. But that group is whack. This is very whack. Those are just the last team standing. Luma Stars 5-0'd their group. Legato 4-1'd. How close was the Legato versus Luma Stars matchup? Not very close at all. Luma Stars seem pretty strong, even though they got a free win because of a bye. But pretty much sweeping everybody else that they played. So for the final stage of this group, Luma Stars being at number 1, but man, again, not a lot of information go out here. Division Inquisition, we literally only have 2 games to go off of. And they 10-0'd their group per game of the matches that they actually played. And I would expect them to get past Kings of Fire, but we don't really know how truly good they are. Vegas Splat, on the other hand, is the only team in this group that has played all 5 matches and went completely undefeated. 25-0 per game is Vegas Splat. And played some pretty tough teams in there, or pretty decent teams in their group as well. So I think Vegas Splat needs to get the nod just because of that. But until these teams actually play against each other, because we don't have any information literally about them at all other than just who they played in their own individual group, until we see groups play against each other, I can't truly say who's going to win this Div 8 as well. But just for the fact that they're 25-0, they have the most experience in Luti groups, it's probably got to go to Vegas Splat here. Moving on to Div 7, the World. This one's not going to be crazy exciting, but let's go through who all got here. Nebula Inc. and Slashers make it from Group A. Starfall 5-0'd their group and did it pretty impressively as well. 5-1, 5-1, a bye, 5-3, 5-0. Hell Kings being the team that win the 3-way tiebreaker here. With 17 points in their group. Group C, Ship Shape survived, going 5-0 in this group over Rising Tide. I believe the Rising Tide Ship Shape match was actually on LSL's stream and went barely into the favor of Ship Shape. So didn't change who made the playoffs, but it did change the order of seeding that they got. And Free Painters 5-0'd this group, even though the reports are that Ink Reapers played their match against Free Painters with only a 3v4 players. Yeah, because they lost 5-1. And Ink Reapers had a tie against Devil's Anchor. I guess they both came to the conclusion they couldn't find a time to play the match in. So I don't know how this. I would assume that's how this tie came to be here for Ink Reapers, and they needed that tie because if they had taken the loss because they had the forfeit, Royal Flames. Actually, no, they still would have got the win over Royal Flames because they own the head-to-head against them. So, yeah, they would have made playoffs regardless of if this was a tie or a loss, even though Royal Flames have more points. Ink Reapers owns the head-to-head. Ink Reapers, as you know, is the team that won Low Ink as the Div 8 team. Or the Div 7 team. Yes, and we know they're better than Div 7. However, as we look at the round 1 match, look who they play. They play the team that we accidentally put in Div 7 because we didn't recognize that they had a Div or a +2 player on their roster. So Nebula Inc., who is 25-0 in their group, completely dominated their group, will play Ink Reapers, and this will be the championship match that I think will go to Nebula Inc.'s favor. Yes, you would, and it's going to be weird because you're going to think, wow, a Div 7 team won Low Inc., but they can't even win their group. It's just how good Nebula Inc. is, and they're not a Div 7 team. But if Ink Reapers can somehow find a way to trip up Nebula Inc. and beat them, that would be shocking. And Ink Reapers will go on to win this group if that is the case. But Nebula Inc. has this on lockdown. Now, not to just completely wipe away the rest of this group, I think Slashers versus Starfall will happen here in the semifinals, and I think that'll be a fun matchup to see those two teams play against each other. Slashers, the team that go 4-1, they were in the group with Nebula Inc. Starfall being one of the more notable teams that have been playing in Little Squid League. I believe we saw them play in Minnow Cup as well, but they 5-0'd their group, so I would like to see Starfall versus Slashers here for a chance to play for that second place match. But this is Nebula Inc. all day, unfortunately. No, that's not it. Div 7 America. Ink Bashers 5-0'd their group, beating Power Inc., who makes the group as well. Ink Bashers 5-3'd Power Inc. That's how they got this tiebreaker going on here. Group B, Uncracked swept their group as well. Deep Indigo 4-1, and Uncracked 5-0 Deep Indigo. So not particularly close between number 1 and number 2 right there. Typhoon and Screw the Meta move on, and that is significant because Typhoon only beat Screw the Meta 5-4. So a really close result between those two teams. That was the championship match in round 1. Probably weren't predicting. Mystical Inc. 5-0'd their group with Demon Hunters, and Mystical Inc. When they played Demon Hunters wasn't particularly close, a 5-2 matchup right there. So as we look at the final standings here, this one's going to be more interesting than the World Group for sure. Ink Bashers are the only pure 5-0 team here, though. A lot of these groups in Div 7s are drops or buys or whatever. So the Ink Bashers, the only real team here that's played truly 5 matches and have gone undefeated in it. Also a more experienced team because they are playing in tournaments outside of just Luti. That pays off in the long run. Uncracked, though, they seem really good. They have not dropped a single game. They've only played 4 matches. They played 4 matches and went 20-0 and get in them, including that 5-1. Well, no, it wasn't. They're not completely undefeated, but yeah, they're. Oh, they are. I said they were 5-0. Regardless, they're Uncracked seems to be the favorite to win this group. They play Screw the Meta first, and that will be very telling if I can scroll it down so you can actually see it. They played Screw the Meta first, which will be telling because Screw the Meta was right with Typhoon Splatoon in those two teams in the group. If Uncracked beats Screw the Meta by a convincing score, like a 5-0, 5-1 kind of result, then you can think like, okay, that means they're better than Typhoon Splatoon. And Typhoon would probably hang with Ink Bashers. If Uncracked just dominates through the meta, they're going to win this group. If they don't, it'll make things a little bit more interesting, but that'll be the true tale as we start comparing scores between groups. But Ink Bashers, I think, they're a team I'm excited about, but I think on Cracked should be considered the favorite going into this one. Div 6, the world. Let's look how we got to this point. Booyah Ghost 5-0'd their group and did it in dominant fashion. Nightshade took a game off of them. Gravity took 2. Inception took 2. Irida took 1. So it wasn't a total domination, but still nobody really threatened to beat them. Inception survives the head-to-head tiebreaker against Gravity. I believe that's a head-to-head tiebreaker. Gravity and Inception. Yeah, 5-4 result. So a very close result between those two teams was the difference between Gravity and Inception making the playoffs. Nightmares made top cuts, but they did not go completely undefeated. The one team to beat Nightmares. Oh, actually, I remember this group. If you recall, during my my last Luti episode, I talked about how one group was likely to go 3 teams going 4-1, and one team was going to miss the playoffs. Look how crazy this last week was. Inkcraft Cult upset the Untitled Duck Crew 5-4. Myopsidus upset Squadra Azura Cielo 5-3, and Nightmares barely held on to Tinta Strip Tacos 5-4. These were supposed to be easy wins for those 3 teams, and instead 2 of them lost, and the other one barely got the win. So that's all they had to do was just take care of business, and we had a 4-1 result. Instead, we got 2 teams at 3-2. Nightmares get the advanced just because they have the most wins, and Squadra Azure, since they won the head-to-head against the Untitled Duck Crew, they cannot. They get the head-to-head tiebreaker there, even though they got the same amount of points. So this was the most exciting group of all. I wanted to point it out, and these 2 teams just survived. Group C, Tinta Shrimp Cocktails 5-0, beating Cuttlefish Bay, who will take the second place as well. Tinta Shrimp 5-1 Cuttlefish Bay back in round 1, not particularly close. And Group D, Sorrow appears to be the monster in hiding here. They only dropped 1 game to Team Name Guys Please, 25-1 the entire time. 60% Fish Puns, took care of business, beating everybody else on their schedule to go 4-1. So what does this say about the final stage here, which has Booyah Ghost, who I'm interested in, I think are pretty good, but I don't know. I don't know if they played anybody of 60% Fish Puns caliber just yet. So that'll be more telling for them. Regardless, though, I don't see how Sorrow loses this one. They look really, really good. They don't look like a Div 6 team. But I think Sorrow can... I don't see who's supposed to beat Sorrow. I don't know. Now, Nightmares survived their group at 4-1. The Cocktails are 5-0 as well. So I think it'll be interesting if the Ghosts get past 6 puns, if the Ghost and the Cocktails play against each other, which one will go on to face Sorrow. But I don't see how Sorrow loses this. I mean, they've only lost 1 game so far in a very tough group against notable Div 6 teams. 60% Fish Puns, Team Name Guys Please. Black Squids did decently well, even though they only got 1 win there. So Sorrow probably is going to win this group or win this div. I'm willing to bet that. The America group of Div 6. First off, Rising Hope 5-0'd their group. Some people might have been surprised when I put them in my low ink top 10. This is why. Really strong. Ink Eyes has the head-to-head against Riptide, one of these few 3-2 matches. 3-2 teams going in as the number 2 seed. Even though they got less points than Riptide, they own the head-to-head. That's the first tiebreaker. Booyah X and Outcast Ninjas played a really fantastic championship match here. And a good win for Booyah X to come out on top in Game 9. Didn't affect things as far as who made the playoffs. They both made the playoffs. Cracked here at 4-1, though, is the odd team looking outside. Probably hoping that one of these teams had tripped up and didn't win as dominant. They probably hope one of these teams dominated the other one so that they could avoid, so they could create this three-way tiebreaker where they have more points than one of them. But this match going to a game 9 worked out in both favors for both teams, because otherwise the loser would have been taken over by Cracked here. 4-1, missing the playoffs. That sucks. Insurgents Agency and Mirkwood Falcons, the only two 4-1 teams here in what was a bloody Group C, able to survive. Insurgents Agency, we talked about them. They are a top 10 team on the monthly low-level ranking list. This is why they won their group. Mirkwood Falcons beat Surf and Turf, so that put them ahead of them and got them into their group as well. The one team to beat Insurance Agency was Surf and Turf, who ended up going 3-2 in this group, missing playoffs. Just barely missing playoffs. Group D, Wipeout Punks, the team that won the Invitational, the Fighter Invitational from the past weekend, 4-1. Vaporwave 4-1, and Shiver Me Inklings 4-1 as well. Another one of these awkward 4-1 groups. How did this come to play? First off, Wipeout Punks. Who did they lose to? They lost to Vaporwave 5-4. They beat Shiver Me Inklings 5-1 earlier. For Vaporwave, who lost to who beat Shiver Me Inklings beat Vaporwave, and who did okay, so this is a true three-way tie where all three teams just beat each other. Vapor beat Shiver, or something like that. I'm not going to go back and look at it. But these three teams all took games off of each other, and it just came down to points of how many games they were able to win in other groups. So Vaporwave and Wipeout Punks survived. Shiver Me Inklings, another team left out in the cold, unfortunately, with 4-1. Still a good tournament for them, obviously. They just won't get the chance to prove themselves in playoffs. And looking at playoffs right here for Div 6 America, this one is more up for grabs, and this was going to be one of the more interesting groups to look at. First off, Rising Hope, I think, is the favorite here, but I don't like the path that they have to go through. They have to play Vaporwave round 1. That's not going to be an easy win for them by any stretch of the imagination. And if they were to get past Vaporwave, they'll have to play either Insurance Agency or Outcast Ninjas, two alpha bracket teams from the past Low Inc. So they're going to play a tough team in semifinals if they can get past Vaporwave to begin with. Then on the bottom side of the bracket here, Booyah X, who very surprising result for them in this tournament, making the playoffs here as the number 2 seed. We'll see how they do against Mirkwood Falcons, who we don't really know a lot about outside of what they did in just their groups, but that group was kind of a bloodbath. So this will be a good matchup as well. Ink Eye, I think, is got the tougher challenge of the week of round 1 against Wipeout Punks. Again, we talked about Wipeout Punks coming off of the Invitational tournament win that they had, but they don't play in other tournaments, and we haven't seen them much in Low Inc. We don't see them in Middle Cup, so it's hard to compare them against other teams. This will be a good indicator of how good Wipeout Punks really is, because Ink Eye is really improving over the course of the past couple of months that they've been playing in. But this group is really wide open. I like Rising Hope, but I feel like the path they have to take to get to finals is rough. This is top to bottom. This is a really strong 8 teams in this group that we don't really see in some of these other groups, to be honest. But I'll say Rising Hope now, but I'm not totally. I wouldn't gamble money on it. Lastly, Div 5. Then we'll call it a day. We're looking at the world stage here. The Fugatsu Angels blessed their group with a 5-0 result, beating TZK, beating them, survived them, beat them 5-3 there. Pretty close result there. But everybody else that played the Angels did not have a fun time. 5-1, 5-0, 5-0, 5-1. So the Angels dominant in their group, TZK right behind them. Seem pretty close with each other. Shinobi Squad 5-0'd their group, and Game Over being the one team that they beat who still made playoffs. Anyways, 5-3 results of those two teams seem pretty close to each other. Shinobi Squad, 5-3 against the Seals, 5-2 against Yosemite. And I don't know what happened here with Vallejo Squid. I don't think they won a single game, so I don't know if they dropped or what. But we didn't see a lot of Vallejo Squid action here. So Shinobi Squad, yeah, they're 5-0, but not totally dominant as some of these other 5-0 teams. Neptune's Envoy survived 0 Inc. dropping from the tournament and turned around to go 5-0 in this group. TR Esports being the other team that moved on. Spirit Incorporated dropping kind of screwed up this group. And TR Esports, when they played Neptune's Envoy, wasn't particularly close either. So it would have been nice to see Spirit Incorporated stay in this one, but drops happen, disbandments happen, and these two teams survived the group anyways. Incluminatis 5-0'd what I considered the group of death earlier when I first talked about this group back in the preseason, I guess you could say. The other team, Squid Knights, being the team that went 4-1, very impressive there. I don't think they actually 5-0'd the Kraken Warriors. I think this was a scheduling issue that somehow went into the favor of Squid Knights. So we were kind of robbed of a little bit of a true play-in match here between Kraken Warriors and Squid Knights. I don't know what my wife was telling me there was some sort of controversy with this. I'm not quite sure what that is, so I'm not going to comment on it. Regardless, on paper, Squid Knights got the win. It's not like a clear 5-0. I think this is a forfeit, but a win's a win. When Squid Knights and Incluminatis played, it was not particularly close. And Kraken Warriors did give Incluminatis an actual run for their money, but we can't talk about hypotheticals. We just got to talk about what's on paper here. Squid Knights are the number 2 team in this group. As we look at the final stage, Fukatsu Angels seem like the team to beat here until you get to grand finals where they're going to have to play Incluminatis. I think Incluminatis is going to get past these teams. TR Esports, Shinobi Squad, I mean, they could be a really good team. It's just I don't feel confident with they didn't seem as dominant as the Angels or Incluminatis in their own groups. So I think this is going to come down to Fukatsu versus Incluminatis, and it's going to go into the favor of the Angels, the team coming off third place finish in the most recent low ink, doing better in every single low ink they play in. The Angels are clicking at the right time. They will win this group, or that div. Div 5 America. First off, Access denied 5-0'd their group with a close 5-4 win against the Deep Fried Octolings, which turned to be the championship match back in round 1. So the Deep Fried Octolings going to be moving on as well. But Access denied looking really strong with a 5-0 result in this group against some really notable teams, including Dark Rain. Dreamscape got 4-1 here in this group. Everybody else had at least 2 losses. Riot being the other team that advances from this 3-way tie. Look at this. They tied with Inkstrike Inklings with points and record. So I don't know. Riot played Inkstrike. Where is that? Oh, it's right there in the middle. Inkstrike. Oh, look at this. Look at this. We had a tiebreaker go down to the number of losses they had, I think. So the first tiebreaker is head-to-head. Second tiebreaker is the amount of wins you got, right? So they're tied with that. So there's this 3-way tie here. So head-to-head goes out the window. The amount of wins you got is still tied as well. So the third tiebreaker is how many losses you had. So, and that's not readily available on here, but I guess if we just did the math, Riot got 3 there, 5 there, so that's 8. So it's 13, right? 13, and then 14. Okay, so 14 losses for Riot. For Inkstrike, 0. There's 5. There's 8. Oh, this 5-4 result might have killed them here. That's 12. Yeah, all these 5-4 results are what did them in. So even though Inkstrike had the head-to-head over Riot, the rare third tiebreaker went into the favor of Riot there. So, hey, that's cool to see. How did Dreamscape lose here? That's the one thing I wanted to point out. The one team that lost to them, or that they lost to, was Karma 5-0, and that is really sus. Because this screams, I don't know the exact information on this, but this screams that this was possibly a forfeit or a 3v4 or a scheduling issue or something like that. Just because a 5-0 result over the team that made the top cut in the playoff, the number 1 seed in your group, and the only win Karma got, probably some sort of scheduling issue, I'm willing to assume is the case there. Citrus and Sekinaga moved on in their group, and yes, those two teams played in another 5-4 matchup. Those two teams really close with each other. Labyrinth X, if they didn't disband, would have made this a little bit more interesting, but nobody else could really touch these two teams in this group. And Group D, Amnesia, even though they tripped up and lost to ITAP, in this rematch that was just a few days ago, still win this group because they own the head-to-head over Tooniverse. Who would have thought that this matchup between Amnesia and Tooniverse in round 1 was going to hold so much weight at the end of the day? But Amnesia head-to-head and more points than Tooniverse, even though Tooniverse beat ITAP and Amnesia didn't. Really strong group here across the board, but I was not expecting Amnesia and Tooniverse to both move on in this group. So impressive result for those guys. As we look at the final stage, the favorite is probably going to be Citrus versus Access Denied here in the semifinals. Not that I'm counting out Tooniverse immediately. Tooniverse has been playing really strong lately and has been doing a really good job of game planning and taking all of their opponents seriously. In their Luti group. Access Denied going to be one of the more tougher teams they've faced so far. But Citrus, you got to think, is the favorite to make it to finals, right? Well, it depends on this Dreamscape Sekinaga matchup. And this is interesting because Sekinaga, you know I'm high on them. They almost beat Citrus. But Dreamscape, if you just go back and look at how much Dreamscape dominated their group, other than that awkward, whatever this is, 5-4 result here, Dreamscape, 5:03 a.m., Alpha Bracket team. 5-1 Riot, a team that's made Alpha Bracket before. 5-0 to Inkstrike Inklings. 5-0 or a 1 because of a forfeit. Or did they forfeit to Enigma? Yeah, I completely read this. I completely read this wrong. I don't know why I was focused on. I thought Karma won 5-0. It's Enigma that they had to forfeit to. Is why Dreamscape got the win there. Okay, so everybody they played, 5-0'd or 5-1. So Dreamscape, when they actually play their matches, looks pretty dominant. So I'm going to pencil in Dreamscape as the team that's going to win this group. Especially if they dominate Sekinaga, it's over. It'd be over. That's not to discredit this Amnesia Deep Fried Ogling matchup. That's going to be a fun matchup to watch. But I'm not crazy. If Dreamscape dominates Sekinaga, they're just going to roll throughout this entire group, and then they're proven that they're not going to be a Div 5 team, and they're going to be a team that I think we all need to keep an eye on for the upcoming SAC season, if that is the case. I don't know why I kept thinking, man, I really read that wrong. I guess I shouldn't be doing Popcast episodes this late. We're done, though. That's your recap. 100% accurate predictions of what's going to happen in the Luti playoffs for this year. We're not going to go back each and every week. We'll peek into the groups over the course of the next couple of episodes of the podcast, but we won't do like a deep dive into it until the end of the season. Maybe we'll talk about what divs I think some of these teams are now at the end of the season. When it gets down to that. So a lot of cool matches that are going to be going on in there that I didn't really get to talk about, but yeah, we'll look at that going forward. So make sure you guys actually play your matches, get them in on time, so that we can talk about them and it's not weird or anything like that. In the meantime, if you'd like to be a part of the Popcast in any way, you'd like to come on, I haven't done any team interviews in a while. We need to get back to doing some of that. If you're a TO and you want to come on and talk about some stuff with your tournaments, if you just have a hot take, maybe at some point I'll just open up the Discord so that you can just hop into VC and you can come on the Popcast and give your takes about something, and I can tell you why you're a moron. If you want to do any of those things, feel free to join my Discord server, link below, or it's pinned on my Twitter page, or reach out to me on any of my socials. Twitter at Mr_Popgun, Discord at Popgun, #5882, YouTube at 25Popgun, Twitch at Popgun25, Anchor.fm/Popgun. That sounds dangerous. Yes, it does. For a live show, it sounds really dangerous. I would have to vet people before letting them on if I were to do something like that. But that's for down the road. I'm just thinking out loud. Let's find somebody to raid. Haya's streaming. Let's go, Haya. Say hi to Haya, and tell him to enjoy the slug video that he's always posting there. Keep wearing your mask. Get vaccinated. Don't do anything stupid. Don't kiss strangers on the mouth unless you know that they're vaccinated or whatnot.